All right, so click the links, join me or subscribe star or locals or the various other links. So Amazon admits to censoring the Lord of the Rings reviews, which is weird how they admit it. Like, oh yeah, of course, they were low reviews and they weren't in accord with our values. So wait a minute, I don't think you understand the purpose of having reviews in the first place. I mean, if you can just so easily just censor the ones you don't like, which I suspect are all the low scores. You know, I'm going out on a limb there that you're probably not removing the high scores. The thing with this is kind of like getting into a weird area where they really don't want feedback from people. It's like they're really focused on a monologue and not a dialogue. So deleting comments, I was going to say first it happened on YouTube, but I think it actually goes back to like when the concept kind of gathered steam was Netflix with Amy Schumer's Leather special about 4 years ago that people joke about. It goes, yeah, she's talking about how unattractive she is and how her parts are unattractive also. And you go, no, she's not. Just comedian's not going to, that doesn't make sense. And then you watch the clips and you're like, oh, she really is talking about what a unattractive person she is, which is I wonder why the show didn't do well. Anyway, so deleting comments, it really blew up on YouTube when Susan whatever came out and said, nah, we're gonna just hide the downvotes so the creators can see them. I don't even know where they are on in the creator settings. I mean, you can see it with a Google Chrome extension, which probably means that YouTube is just going to do away with the downvotes entirely, or maybe even do away with all the scores. So why that's not why people got on YouTube in the first place. People did not want TV. TV is just a monologue. It's literally called YouTube, essentially your TV. That lasted a few years until Google bought them out. So they turned off the downvotes because one of the reasons was because of Biden, because people obviously hate him and his White House, and his two press secretaries so far have not been very popular. And the thing is, you can't turn off is the lives, and also he turns off, or his administration, because he's not doing anything, turns off the comments, which is weird because that seems like a First Amendment issue. And then the thing is, you can't conceal, unless you got a lot of bots, is the live streams. He does a lot. He or his press secretary or someone does from his administration will do a live stream. You're like, okay, so 100 people on a live stream for the president of the United States, and you kind of get the feeling, well, all 100 of those are mainstream media people. That's weird for the most popular guy in history. Something doesn't quite add up there. Anyway, people hate him. But also one of the other reasons was the stuff coming from Hollywood, the woke Hollywood remake type of stuff. People hate woke Hollywood and the Marxist globalist media. I don't know how many downvotes something like Ghostbusters 2016, the stuff came out for that, or The Little Mermaid got like 2 million upvotes and 3 million downvotes or something. And honestly, it probably would have got more downvotes if they showed them, because if it's hidden, people don't know that you can still downvote all those videos, which is half the reason to go watch some videos. Is just that's half the reason people were watching Mundane Matt videos. So controlling the narrative is so incredibly powerful. YouTube removing the dislikes, or at least hiding them, is a huge deal. They're pushing propaganda via this fake news in Hollywood. It's like we know, and they know that we know, and more people are awakening and learning that the media and government are actually biblically evil. Ask yourself, where's the right-wing representation in the mainstream media or in government? It doesn't exist. Doesn't that seem odd? An entire group of people who are not allowed representation anywhere in the mainstream. Doesn't it seem weird that social media is so completely controlled and locked down? That the only free political speech is on Gab and Telegram. You got to wonder what we'd be doing differently if Twitter and Telegram or Facebook, the mainstream social medias, if they had free speech, like absolute free political speech. Would the social media platforms slowly go to the right? Would the country go to the right? Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, the mainstream media and social media have the country enslaved. People just kind of accept it because they boiled the frog so slowly, and it's also that detrimental reliance concept of they build these platforms. Everyone goes to the platforms assuming like the companies don't come out in the beginning and say this is a free speech platform. It's like this is just Facebook and this is just Twitter. It's going to be a fun place where everyone can communicate, and people in the back of their mind are kind of assuming there's going to be more freedom than there is, and then they get everyone to use it. They rely on it to their detriment, and then they start kicking off right wing people. And you go like, wait a minute, so you guys completely control the narrative. But it seems like you guys are controlling elections because if you're on the right wing and you're kicked off social media, you're not going to get elected. That seems like something that should be handled immediately. And it's I would say a more naive me several years ago would have said it's shocking that they don't handle it. But it's kind of like this epiphany you have where you realize, how do I say this? Something is like instantly true once you realize that they should be doing something and they're clearly not doing something. And then you look at the people who are not doing something, in this case representatives in Washington, and you realize, oh, they don't represent us. They're representing some other interests. Like literally the third of a billion people who are in the country are not their people. So now Amazon is admitting to deleting reviews. And Rotten Tomato rates the show at 35%. That seems roughly accurate. Honestly, to me, it feels a little bit high because the show Rings of Power is not Tolkien. In my opinion, it would deserve a 0 rating because it's just not what it purports itself to be. But Amazon gives it a 70%, as well as Internet Movie Database. They both give it the exact same 69% rating, which Amazon obviously owns Internet Movie Database, which gave it the 69, and they don't own Rotten Tomato, which gave it a 35, which kind of makes you scratch your head and go, oh, I wonder which one is more realistic. And then you watch the show for yourself and you realize, oh, the 35% is more realistic, which, if anything, it's being generous. So, I mean, how they got that 70% is they simply delete the bad reviews, which actually might tangentially bring up Security and Exchange Commission violations. But, somebody like Amazon, probably nothing's going to happen. It's just too tenuously connected. But think about what Amazon is doing by controlling the reviews. They're saying that the audience is okay with removing, in this case, English people from a story that an Englishman wrote about, at least, the European, the story. That's an amazing control of the narrative. The truth is the 35%. Rings of Power sucks sweaty donkey balls. It's for soy boys and alcoholic single women. There are not enough of them to even bring the score up. And there's a lot of people who are giving it a perfect 10. And then you realize, wait a minute, you guys are giving this a perfect 10. So it only goes to 10 out of 10. So what were you giving Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings? Presumably that would be a perfect 10 also. That doesn't, unless you're saying, dear Lord, that you're saying that Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings is ranked lower than Rings of Power. That's insane. That's the ramblings of a crazy SJW. But in their mind, maybe they do believe that. Maybe, but they, objectively, they kind of can't, because Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings was more closely aligned with the books. Yes, they had to change some things, cut a few things out, but it was pretty close. This is not in alignment with the book, so just on that reason alone, it shouldn't get a high score. But there are plenty of people who gave this thing 10 out of 10, and still only got 70%. The thing is, people should have the right to know what the honest reviews are. Politics are downstream from culture. That's why I'm talking about this stuff, and that's why I think it's important. People are social creatures, and I think there's a term for it. It's like herd behavior, getting people to do things and getting people to think that if the crowd thinks a certain way. So what they're doing is if people generally think that this type of cancer is acceptable to 70%, then they're going to give it a shot, which might inflate Amazon's share values, but it also controls the narrative that people are okay with being erased from their own story, which, if they had comments open, people would. And the thing is, people are going to have a little discussion about the future of the country and free speech. And there's a certain percentage of the country, and it's a small percentage, but they're very, very powerful, who legitimately flat out do not want free speech. They're terrified of it, and they will go to war to stop free expression. So these people who control social media and mainstream media are terrified of a dialogue. That's why they slowly got rid of comments on news sites. They want and have absolute control of the mainstream media. If people were able to openly review these horrible shows, on the sites themselves or also on YouTube, which is probably the biggest sort of a review site, because they show their previews on there, and they didn't delete comments, and they show the downvotes. It would slowly dawn on people that these companies, like these shows, are not popular. The woke stuff that they're putting out, I don't know, what's the worst example recently. I guess this show, Rings of Power, maybe is a huge budget, absolute woke bomb. Or She-Hulk, or what's the other one that, God, yeah, I don't even remember. Or Ghostbusters 2016, or Shang-Chi, or I guess Shang-Chi wasn't that bad, but Charlie's Angels, or Terminator, or latest X-Men, or Oceans whatever, and Birds of Prey, or SS Squad Part 2, or I said that to avoid saying Suicide Squad, but now I realize that the two initials are probably even more triggering than actually just saying the word. But there's a bunch of these woke movies that are horrible. And if people were able to talk about them on YouTube, honestly, without being attacked by brie bots, or these other, having their comments removed and removing the downvotes, people will go, wait a minute, these shows aren't popular at all, and they're not making money, and people are clearly articulating the reasons why they don't like these shows, and they're not making money. That's the bottom line. Are you writing with red ink or black ink? And then you have to wonder, wait a minute, so why are you still making these shows? These are publicly traded companies. Money should matter, right? And then even, sorry to use the word normie, but the most normie and normistan is going to realize that there's some other forces at play here, which is, one of the reasons I still make YouTube videos as carefully as I can to try to, carry that message across, that it's not about the money. It's really not. If people were free to look at these things, and if they saw that, it's actually a 35% on the Amazon Prime Video thing, it's not a 70%. Oh, that's weird that they're pushing this thing that's clearly not powerful. And to be fair, Game of Thrones, House of Dragons is got an 83% from the critics and an 83% from fans, where this Rings of Power has got like I don't know what the critics gave it, like probably 85% or something, but the fans gave, or the customers, the normal people just gave it a 35%. She-Hulk got a 38%, and where the actual reviewers, I think, gave it a higher score. But I mean, you see the disconnect between the professional reviewers and professionals in quotes, because what does it take to be a reviewer? You give reviews, and you do it long enough in an entertaining fashion that eventually you get advertisers. It's like, well, okay, now you're being paid for your reviews. Well, then you're a professional reviewer. It's not like they go to film school and get like a master's of fine arts in film or something. But the disconnect between these professional reviewers and just the audience, you realize, okay, wait a minute. It seems like the audience isn't biased because they're in the 99%. So the reviewers, the professional reviewers that are controlling this narrative and writing for these media companies, online and paper, if paper even exists anymore, they're obviously biased to a far left extent, because you can tell by their ratings that left-wing stuff gets, anything diverse is going to get like the Disney Star Wars got really high scores, and you're like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Why isn't it more fairly apportioned with left-wing and right-wing people as professional reviewers? And then you realize, well, nobody's going to hire the right-wing people on any of these media sites. Like if Kotaku or CBR or Mary Sue or any of the other mainstream sites, there are no right-wing people working for them. You might, if you were for one of these sites and your thing was reviewing movies, and you slowly kind of got more and more conservative over the years, and you started giving Black Panther, you said, it's a real mediocre movie, I'll give it like a 70%. It's just okay. It's like, well, you're just going to get fired. Eventually, it's like, they're just going to get rid of you. So there's this huge disconnect. And, it's about time people started talking about how this is controlling the narrative, that concept of politics being downstream from culture. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on Subscribestar, Locals, Telegram, and I'll catch you guys next episode.